Would you like to discover a revolutionary new recipe for plant-based bacon?
Well, today on WTF, we're going to take you through all the steps on how to make an amazing plant-based bacon at home. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Chef Scott Guerin.
And I'm Janie Wang, one of the owners of Modernist Pantry. Here on WTF, every week we talk about unique ingredients, techniques, and show you new recipes that you can do in your kitchen. So subscribe, ring the bell, and of course stick around for our weekly giveaway. This week we are unveiling a brand new recipe for plant-based bacon. And that's really exciting because if you've been following WTF for a while, you know that we only make meat analogs that are similar in flavor, texture, and feel and usage to what I like to call meat. So I think today we're just going to pass it right over to Scott. Scott, I know this is going to be a very involved recipe. Can you maybe start us off with some of the challenges you faced when we started tackling plant-based bacon and what you were looking for to make the best version of this?
Yeah, so we've made plenty of meat-based or plant-based meat analogs. That's a good one. So trying to find the texture of bacon and what makes bacon special, not just on a flavor standpoint, but the texture is really important. Crispy, but you get those fatty, chewier bits. It needs to have like a great ratio between the two. And if you don't have those, you're not really going to have that bacon feel. Because anytime you get any plant-based bacon, or even turkey bacon for that matter, it's different colors with the same texture. And that's not what bacon is. The fat, even when it's crispy fat, will have a different texture than the meat. The meat's a little bit crunchier, the fat's a little bit crispier and softer. So we really wanted to make two different textures, layer them together, and have them cook at the same rate. And it took a lot of figuring out, a lot of tests just to find what worked.
Okay, well, I'm excited to get started with it. Are we starting today? Are we doing the meat portion of it? Are we doing the fat portion of it? What's going on?
So to make this episode flow a lot better, we made the meat already. And this is similar to the hot dog recipe, which we've made before on WTF. So you will be able to see this kind of all the way through. There will be a video later this week showing you the entire process. If you just want to read the recipe, it's on our blog. Links in the description below. You'll be able to see all this, how to do it and read how to do it as well. But we made the meat, and basically what I did is I put it into some vacuum seal bags. If you don't have those at home, that's totally fine. Just put it into like a zip top bag and flatten it out. That's basically all I did here is I made it, I placed it into here. It's a very simple recipe. Once you have all your mise en place, all your stuff set up, it takes about 45 minutes to do from start to finish to get it into the oven.
Okay.
So it's involved, but the process are simple. Also, we didn't want to have to wash this twice throughout. That would make for a very long episode, you watching me wash a dish. So what we're going to make here is the fat. Now the fat's really important because we wanted the fat to not completely melt away. We wanted the fat to not be stiff and chewy, so we had to find like a happy medium, and that's what we did. And the way we did that is we took some of our fava bean protein, which we love here. It's great. It has a nice kind of umami flavor to it, but also it cooks and it holds up really well once it's cooked. And we added some glutinous rice flour because we wanted to have some texture to it that breaks up the kind of intense burger binder, which we'll talk about in just a second. So I'm going to add this here. So that's just a 50-50 ratio. 30 grams of glutinous rice flour and 30 grams of fava bean protein. Like I said, link in the description below with the exact amount of ingredients. So then we have our very thick burger binder. Now this is just water, ice cold water, and burger binder blended together. Very important. If you don't use ice cold water, the burger binder is going to take a lot longer to hydrate. Ice cold water, it'll be done in 30 seconds. If you want to get this recipe done today, do that. It's really a great little tip with methicellulose or burger binder, whatever. So that's what I'm going to add here. And I know that looks extremely appetizing, but I assure you, when it's done, it's great. Now, why this is different, methylcellulose, when it's cooked, it gels, and then when it cools, it softens. Now, I don't want my bacon to, as it cools, turn into a puddle on the plate. So that's why I have the fava bean protein and the glutinous rice flour. So it maintains that structure, and you also get the chewiness, but you also need some fat.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want my fat to be completely flavorless, so I have some smoked salt here, and then I also have a little bit of MSG there. If you don't want MSG, we love MSG. MSG is great. If you don't want it, we have umami powder that you can sub it out for. We also have umami powder later in the recipe. So I'm going to put this in here and start just blending it a little bit.
Okay. And for people who have been following our plant-based series, and we've talked a lot about making a marbling fat, I'm sure someone's out there is like, well, can I just use the marbling fat?
Great question. Unfortunately, no. The marbling fat is made specifically to melt away and kind of give you that, fatty, juicy kind of attribute to burgers and things like this. We tried to add marbling fat to this recipe, and it just wasn't working. It was leaving big pockets within the entire mixture, so we didn't want that because you don't have big pockets within the fat, right? So what we're actually going to do, once this starts to mix in really well, I'm going to just drizzle in this coconut oil. Now, this coconut oil has been brought to about room temperature. If you feel that, Janie, it's about the same temperature as our bodies. So if I were to add this too hot, it'll set this methylcellulose, the burger binder. So I have to make sure that it is a very low temperature. If for some reason you do add it too hot, here's a quick little tip, which you may not find in the recipe. Add an ice cube or two to this. You know how I know that? I did it. So the ice cube will bring it back down to the correct temperature and allow it to mix in really well.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to add this in and blend it up. If it needs to raise the speed, that's totally fine.
Okay. And if you haven't seen the other plant-based recipes, we would really recommend checking out the burger recipe, the hot dog recipe, the steak recipe. We're going to link to that in the description below, as well as to our episodes at the end of this episode. And the reason for that is that, over the last couple of years, we've really been building and building and building upon, the knowledge that we've gotten from all this R&D. So some of this stuff, it might seem like we're covering kind of fast, and you might be like, I'm not sure what burger binder is.
Yes.
But we really go into a lot of details in the earlier episodes. So, if you want to dive deeper into it, it's a great opportunity to do so.
So I'm just going to scrape this down. It's going to need about 30 seconds more to really start coming together. That will be good.
Okay.
So we can just wait, and when this is done, we'll be able to go.
Yeah. So one quick question for you, Scott, is that this is obviously a bit of a labor-intensive type of recipe. So once you've made your bacon, are you able to keep it in the fridge like regular store-bought bacon? Can you freeze it? How do you make sure you get the most out of the amount of time that you've put into it?
Yeah. So this recipe's special is that I roast the bacon off, and then I take that roasted bacon. You can slice it immediately. You can slice that. You can place it on paper. You can either place it into a bag and freeze it, or you can place it in your refrigerator and keep it for a while. This is going to last quite a while. It's going to last over 7 days. There's a good amount of salt in it. There's a good amount of lactic acid as well that's going to help prevent it from going bad or anything like that. I wouldn't keep it for more than 2 weeks, but you can definitely keep it in the freezer for up to a month. If you have vacuum seal bags in between two pieces of paper, like parchment paper, in that bag you can keep it for a very long time. All right. I may have to do the ice cube trick with this. Ready, Janie?
Okay. Whoa.
Oh, there we go.
There might be a little B-roll right here.
Yeah, there's going to be some B-roll here. All right. Well, now that we did our ice cube trick.
Yeah, so this actually looks a lot like icing to me.
It does look a lot like icing, but it is not. I'm sure it doesn't taste like it either. But it works really great because we want to be able to spread it and give it that smooth texture. And there's another little tip to making that nice smooth texture over the top of it as well. So lots of little things here that make this bacon great, and lots of little tips because we did a ton of testing on this to make sure it was awesome. So good. All right, let's get into the layering for this recipe. Good. That looks beautiful. Now I have one glove on here, and that's going to be important for your recipe. If you don't, you're not going to be able to, constantly have to wash your hands. So I'm going to dunk my hands in a little bit of water here. I'm just going to pull back. Like I said, if this was just a zip top bag, you could cut it. But you want to open this up.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you just want to make sure that you're getting like a clean peel off of.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some that sticks to it, but you want that flat texture. I've tried to lay it out and spread it, but with the bag, I can really press a lot of the air bubbles out. Like I said, you don't want a bunch of air bubbles. A few in there is totally fine. So let's do it this way. I'm going to lay this down closer to the back so we can see it.
Yeah, it's giving that pink color in the meat.
So that's similar to the rest of our meat-based or plant-based meat analogs. That's beet powder. So we have some beet powder that's in there, and then lots of different things. There's some mace. There's a lot of onion powder in this, which will give it that kind of pork, like a very reminiscent pork aroma to it. So.
It's actually, I can smell it. It already smells pretty fragrant.
Yeah, there's some marjoram, similar to our hot dog recipe. So, and it's okay if there's a little hole in there, not the end of the world. You can just pick it off and stick it down. Remember, bacon is never super uniform, so that's what you want.
Okay.
Rinse my hand off, and then I'm gonna take some of the fat. Now you want just a little less than half, because you want a thicker layer on top and a thinner layer in between. Now, if you do a layer that's too thin, the beet will then kind of overtake it and you won't even see this middle layer. So you want this to be just thick enough. And here's where the water really comes in. So I dunk my hand in the water and over the fat. It makes it very easy to spread. It almost looks like butter at this point.
Yeah, and what is it that's actually keeping the layers together? Because we're not adding any meat glue or anything in here.
No, you don't really have to, because once we put it here, they stick together. You saw how much it stuck to this. Now the fat is emulsified into the water here, so the water is predominant. So the two types of the two methylcellulose, the burger binder layers are sticking together. And then you cook it, and everything just comes together, the fava bean protein and the glutinous rice flour. So those stick together as well. Yeah, so I've never had an issue. We tried to add some sort of TVP or TWP, and then we were having, see, this one came off way easier. We had a lot of issues with the TVP and the TWP in this, just because it was making it not stick together.
Okay.
So we did try that for people who were wondering if you wanted a little bit more texture. You might be able to, but we were not able to successfully make it as good as this recipe. Same thing, just pull back that layer. And if you wanted to, you could always make this top layer a little bit thicker. Really,
Right.
It's up to you to design your own bacon.
And of course, you can add your own spices to it too, if you want like
Absolutely.
maple flavored.
Yep,
Yeah.
so we were thinking maple flavor, but we didn't want to add any more moisture. So if you wanted to grind up a little bit of fenugreek, which is the spice that makes fake maple flavor, you could probably do that. Whatever it is, or if you had maple granules, you could sprinkle that over the top. There's tons of great things that you could do for this recipe. We just went with like a smoked bacon. All right, so we're going to put
It's
this...
delicious anyway.
Yeah, of course. So just going to get this right on top. This would be the second to last layer. You'll see a good amount there. Rinse my hand. This will smooth out really nicely. And with this layer, I like to kind of try to cover as much of the edges as possible so it doesn't look like a cake. It looks more meaty. And this recipe is very involved, but the results are great. So, all right, so the last thing we're going to do is I have a little bit of umami powder that I diluted in water, and I'm just going to brush that over the top.
Okay. What does that do?
That's just going to give it a little bit of that brown color, but also You'll see in a second I'm going to be sprinkling a little bit more smoked salt on there. So it's going to look like it's smoked as well, but it's just going to give it that color on the outside, so when you fry up a piece of bacon, you have the spices on the outside, and then the fat, and then the meat, like a distinct layer. So I have some smoked salt here, and I'm going to sprinkle over the top.
This right now like smells really good. I can smell the spices and the meat mixture. I can smell the umami powder and the smoked salt. It's really all like coming together
This is
really
great.
nicely.
The bacon with the black pepper on it is wonderful. Now we're going to pop this into the oven. We're going to roast it. After you're done roasting it, we're going to slice it. And then when we're sliced, then we can come back and kind of cook up the bacon and really see how well it looks, tastes, feels, all that stuff. And the last thing we do right before we throw it in the oven is just a few bay leaves on top, just to kind of infuse as much flavor into it as possible.
All right. Well, we'll be right back.
Great.
All right, and we're back. As you can see, we can't wait to fry up some bacon and taste them. But before we do that, let me talk about this week's giveaway, because I'm sure a bunch of you are very excited to try this recipe. So you can win all the items you see here today that we've discussed that are going into this particular recipe. And in order to enter to win, just leave in the comments below the next plant-based analog that you would like to see us take on. So I'm sure Scott's very excited. He's like, plant-based, what?
I mean, I like it. It's a challenge, so that's fun.
Yeah, but we like them. So definitely leave in the comments below something that you would like to see us take on. All right, Scott, can you we've roasted it. Let's talk about what do we have here.
All right, as you can see, let's pick this one up. We can see the layers. You can see how it's holding together. It's really great. The thinner they are, obviously, the more flimsy they're going to be, but they definitely hold together really well. This comes in a slab, so this can be treated just like slab bacon. If you wanted to cut it into lardon and put it onto a salad, you could do that. You could also put that into a braise if you wanted to do that. If you wanted to cut it and make confit out of it, you could absolutely do that. So this can be used just like regular bacon is used, and that's what we wanted. If you wanted to get wavy, you may have to get a little fancy with it and throw a skewer through it, but you could absolutely just cook it like this as well. So you can see the layers in there. One thing I do suggest is a lot of oil in the pan. There is fat in this, but there's nothing really to hold on to the fat. Even though we have the burger binder in there, it's just going to be fried and cooked so harsh that you want it to be sitting in a good amount of fat. So as long as you coat the bottom of the pan, you're going to be great. So now we're going to place our bacon in there.
And you can hear that sizzling away. And kind of the amazing thing that I thought about this was that, I was watching Scott slicing the bacon this thin right before we came back on camera, and that's incredible. Oh, and you can smell it immediately.
All right, so now that we've cooked it a little bit, just going to make sure it's not sticking to the bottom of the pan, which we do with anything.
It smells so good. Like, I cannot emphasize how fragrant it is in here right now.
Yeah, the smoked salt really adds to it. Bacon has a lot of things, and bacon is a very craveable aroma. So we tried to replicate it as much as we could using plant-based products, and I think we did a good job. So just flip these over. These ones with the little skewer in it work really well because I can just pick them right up and flip it right over.
Wow.
You can see that texture, right? It's browning. Each one is colored differently, so we can definitely see, but the texture between the fat and the meat is so different. And then the flat ones work really well too.
Yeah.
This is good for like a burger, right?
Yes. I love how the meat portion is getting browner, and you can, it's really something that at least I feel like we haven't seen before, either in other recipes, commercially, or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is getting pretty close. Now, once we get to the point where both sides are cooked on the skewer ones, I can just pull it right out. I use my chef hands. You can usually just use the two tongs if you have them. Yeah, so it'll work just fine. Good. Then they'll maintain the waves. Good. So now these are pretty much ready to go. You can blot them dry just on paper towels like you normally would. Right on a burger. This is great. right? A little bit in there that's super crispy. Take this wavy one and put it with my plant-based eggs over here. And toast. And that's basically it, Jane. It's super simple.
That looks
Let it cool
amazing.
for a second
I
before
know.
we break into it. But
I was gonna say I don't have chef hands, so I would burn my fingers real quick.
yeah, if we can get into it, this will probably be super crispy. Like, you could just hear it snap. Right, if anyone could hear that over my microphone.
Right,
Here,
and
you
it'll
want-
break off. No, you like smushed into that piece.
Sorry.
I'm gonna take another piece. So this piece I have is mostly the fat, but that's my favorite part anyway.
So the fat has a very crisp texture. It's airy, it's light, so when it's fried it's super light, and the meat has a firmer crunch to it than the fat. So different side-by-side textures work really great together.
Yeah, it's crispy, it's salty, it's full
I
of
just got a great
flavor.
crunch off that. So.
Yeah, so, and you do like the variety. I'm gonna take a little bit of this crispy piece too, because I wanna try the crispy spot. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
huge difference.
good crunch, super crispy, salty, umami, all the things that you want from bacon.
Yeah, this is delicious. I hope that you are as excited about this recipe as we are, because you know a lot of work went into it, and it's really just a fantastic piece of bacon. So hopefully you'll give this a try and leave in the comments below something you'd like to see us tackle next. And until next week, from here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie Wang.
And I'm Scott Guerin.